Hey, it's Nate with Superfast CPA. Now, you may have seen some of our videos or listened to one of our podcasts or seen one of our free trainings. I wanted to answer the question, how can we help you pass your CPA exams specifically? How do our products and strategies actually translate into you scoring higher in less time so that you avoid failing sections? So I'm going to do this video from overview to more detail. So if you just want an overview specifically of how our products can help you pass faster, and then if you want to watch longer to see as we get into the actual details of how we create our review notes, which is why they're more helpful than other things that you will find out there, why our pro course has such a high success rate. So with Superfast CPA, we have two core products. We have the pro course, and then we have our actual study tools, the review notes, the audio notes, and then our quizzes that also include mini sims. So the pro course teaches you a step-by-step study framework, and this is mostly based on my own study experience, where I studied the normal way for 3 months only to fail far, and then after that I had started my full-time job in public accounting, so I only had about 2 hours a day. So I switched to some of my own ideas about studying, and I went on to pass all 4 exams in the next 3-month period. So all 4 in 3 months using the strategies that you will learn in the pro course. Now, we've been doing this for several years now, and we've helped thousands of candidates, we've had thousands of customers, and we've consistently refined these strategies and the framework. That's not to say it will make your CPA exam experience easy, but we have multiple examples, many examples, but specifically in podcast format. We've done interviews with some of our past customers, and we have many examples of those interviews where somebody that was dedicated, that was putting in time and effort, but their studying just was not yielding the results on test day. And they go through our pro course, they simplify their daily process, they spend less time sitting in front of their review course, and they get much better results much faster. The main thing with our study tools is to simply provide you with highly effective study supplements that you can use all throughout your day to pack in extra time. Now again, back to my own story, I realized about a month into my job, I only had 2 hours a day to study, and I would look at my phone constantly, and so at one point it dawned on me, I look at this thing all day long, 100 or more times a day. So I need to get some study supplements on my phone that I can use every time I would normally pull up my phone and look at ESPN or play games for a few minutes. So that's exactly what I did. However, the study supplements that I had access to back then, the audio notes were way too long, way too confusing. It took 50 hours to get through the audios one time, whereas our audios are very succinct. You can get through them in 3 to 4 hours. The key idea being repeat exposure. You just listen to these whenever you have the chance, whenever you're driving, and over time, over the weeks, you will end up listening to these from start to finish many, many times. It's the same idea with the review notes and the quizzes. Whenever you would normally pull out your phone and, read your favorite time waster sites or look through social media or text your friends, you would just switch that time with reading the review notes and taking quizzes on the app, switching back and forth between those two things. So when you have a main study session each day with your review course, and then you add in reading our review notes, taking quizzes on the phone, and listening to our audio notes, whenever it makes sense besides all that, whenever you're in your car getting ready in the morning, that is a incredibly powerful combination, and that's why our customers have so many success stories. The key idea being, let's say you study 2 hours in the morning, and then you listen to audios as you get ready in the morning. Then you listen to audios on your commute. And then again, let's even say half the time that you would normally look through your phone on social media or, just time waster stuff, looking at your phone, you replace half of that time with reading our review notes, taking quizzes on the app. So that easily adds an extra 1, 2, or 3 hours a day in addition to your main study session. So 2 to 3 hours a day over an 8-week study plan, that gives you 100 plus extra hours of exposure to the material. That will obviously pay huge dividends on test day because your retention will be much higher. You will have a much deeper understanding and comprehension of the material. So before we get into this, I want to point out the 3 big obstacles to passing your CPA exams. Now, you may or may not have recognized these consciously, but every CPA candidate, when they run into struggles with the study process or with what they see on test day, it comes down to one of these 3 things. So the first one is just general overwhelm. It's very common for somebody to start the study process, to go through a few lessons, and they start to realize how big of a process this is really going to be, how much material there really is, and it starts to just become overwhelming. The other thing that happens as someone's trying to go through this process and sift through all the material, they find themselves day to day just kind of on a hamster wheel of watching a video lecture, not understanding it, starting it over, that's not working, so they look through the chapter, that's not working, they look at the practice questions, now they're more confused. So this general overwhelm of what to actually spend your time doing when you sit down to study. So that's the first big issue. If you're going to sit down and study 2, 3, 4 hours a day, you need to know that that is actually paying off and moving towards your goal. There's nothing worse than spending 8 weeks, having spent 3 or 4 hours a day, and then you get a failing score because your study sessions weren't actually effective. The second issue is time. So sticking to your study routine, simply finding enough time in the day to study. So the other problem with the traditional way of studying is you're supposed to study 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day, depending on the dates that you put into your exam planner. And then, of course, what people realize is that most of our time is really spoken for. It's extremely hard, especially consistently every day, to find 4 or 5 uninterrupted hours and just sit in front of your review course and study. That just ends up not happening multiple days a week. And then, if you're trying to study 4 hours a day and you miss a day, well, now you are looking at 8 hours the next day, but obviously that's not going to happen. 8 entire hours. So it's easy to see why people quickly get off track. The third issue is retention. So let's say you do have a effective way of studying and moving through the material. And then secondly, you somehow manage to find the 4 or 5 hours a day every single day. But let's say about week 4 or 5 or 6, you realize that you've completely forgotten huge portions of all this stuff you spent time studying in the beginning. So the retention issue is, how do you effectively cover 200 or more topics and then remember it well enough to go in and pass on exam day? So these are the 3 big issues. A lot of CPA candidates struggle with all 3 of these at some point, and almost every candidate struggles with 1 or 2 of these, at different times. So now I want to describe the normal way of studying. What I mean by this is you watch every video lecture, you read every chapter, and then you go through the practice problems. Now, the idea with the traditional way is really that you're trying to master each lesson up front. You go in a linear format, one by one, and you don't really look back at anything until the end when you do a final review. Now, the problem with mastering each lesson up front as you go is it takes a huge amount of time and effort up front to really get comfortable with an entire lesson's worth of material. And that leads to the second problem, where you spend all that time and effort, but as we said, you will inevitably forget huge portions of all this time you spent in the beginning. The other issue is that most candidates, they spend 80% of their time goofing around with the video lecture, starting it, not understanding it, watching it, rewatching it, starting it over. You might even get all the way to the end and think you understand it, then look at the practice problems, realize you have no idea, so you go back to watch it for a second time. That is a huge waste of time. So now I want to cover the 6 key ingredients that every successful study routine needs to have. The thing that made me realize these 6 key ingredients was doing all these interviews with some of our past successful customers once they had passed their exams. But doing about 40 of these interviews, I started to realize it's interesting that they might describe it a little bit different, but all of these people mention these same 6 key things. Now, the first few are elusively obvious. They sound very obvious, but they're easier said than done to actually accomplish on a daily basis. So the first key is your daily study routine that needs to happen the exact same way, at the exact same time, in the same place, and it needs to happen every single day. As part of that study process, you need an effective way of covering new material. So it should be surgical, meaning you should approach every lesson the exact same. Now, contrast that to, someone who doesn't have a specific way of going through new material. Some lessons that they might be generally familiar with, or, just easier subject material than other lessons, they don't have that much of a problem. They go through the video, they get it, they do the practice problems. But then they run into some of the harder lessons, and that's where they really get stuck between watching the video 5 times or working on the questions, or looking through the text to try to find the answers to their issues. This third one is a big one, and this is one that a lot of people leave out, and again, unknowingly. They don't realize that they're not taking this extra step, and I refer to this as capturing the understanding. You need to have some way of, when you come across material, it's either hard for you to remember, or it's just confusing to you, or that you, for some reason, you just keep missing problems on. And as you know, there are just some topics that for whatever reason you just personally really struggle to understand. These are the things that you have to have some process of breaking down, putting them into your own words, and capturing the understanding. What I recommend for this is flashcards. And in the pro course, we have an entire video, we have 2 videos on this, where as you go, you're classifying information into level 1, 2, and 3. And level 3 information is the stuff that you would put into flashcards. You, of course, don't want to make a flashcard for every single vocabulary word and formula and topic, because then you'd be rewriting your textbook and you'd be spending all your time doing that. So you want to classify the information into levels 1, 2, and 3, and really it's only level 2 sometimes. Really it's level 2 information that turns into level 3 that you would put into flashcards and go through this process. But again, there's an entire video on that in the pro course. The fourth thing, this is absolutely huge. It sounds like it should be obvious, but again, most people don't come anywhere near, this metric of spending 80% of your study time doing what you'll be doing on test day. This is the entire basis for our approach to studying, and again, it permeates every video in the review or in the pro course. So I won't go into all the details here, obviously, but this is the basis. This idea is the basis of our study approach, and it is why you can get better results faster with less time spent studying when your studying is based on the idea of getting good at what you're going to be doing on test day. Versus, again, the traditional approach is trying to learn every single thing conceptually, which again, it does not directly translate into being able to answer exam questions. So you spend 80% of your time doing what you'll be doing on test day. On test day, you don't get tested as to how well you can watch a video lecture or highlight a chapter. Now, number 5 is like the game changer. All of these things feed into each other as to why this approach is so effective. So hopefully when I mentioned that the traditional approach is very flawed because you go through each lesson one by one, you spend all this time up front learning each lesson only to inevitably forget 50% or more of all this time you've spent on each lesson, and then trying to rush to relearn it all in your final review. That should have been a light bulb moment if you've never thought through that process. So again, our approach is based on a 2-hour morning session. The first 90 minutes you go through new material, and then the last 30 minutes you do a re-review testlet. Again, there's an entire video on how that whole process works in the pro course. But the key idea is that you get a base understanding of each lesson, and then daily you will be adding on to those layers of understanding, so that as time goes by, as the weeks go by, you get better and better at all of the things you've studied, instead of going one by one and slowly forgetting huge portions of that. That's obviously more effective, and again, it's why our clients get such good results after using our strategies and our study tools. The 6th thing is an 80-20 final review. So 80-20, of course, referring to the Pareto principle. You get 80% of the results from 20% of the activities. And what we're trying to do is spend all of our time, or like 80% of our time, doing those 20% activities. So it's much more effective. you get much more results out of less time. So what most people do on their final review is they make the same mistakes that they made throughout their whole study process. So in the final review, the biggest mistake that you can make is go back to your 5 to 10 weakest topics. Remember that coverage is king on the CPA exams. Constant repeat coverage will yield much better results than becoming an expert on the top 10 hardest topics. So you have an 80-20 final review where, again, you're spending most of your time on these very high yield, high efficiency study methods, which again are described in detail in the pro course. So as a quick recap, if you were going to take the full super fast CPA approach, you would be doing a 2-hour main session in the morning, 90 minutes of new material via the planting the seeds method, which is detailed in the pro course. Then you would do 30 minutes of a 30-question review testlet. Then you would do mini sessions all throughout the rest of your day. That means listening to the audio notes whenever you can, whenever it makes sense, in the car, getting ready in the morning, preparing meals, at the gym. Second thing would be reading the review notes and taking quizzes on the app. Whenever you would normally pull out your phone, and I'm talking in like even 60-second increments. When you would normally just pull out your phone, one of the best ideas I heard from one of our customers on the podcast was she just had a rule for herself that whenever she pulled out her phone, if she got a ping that she had a new text from her friend or one of her parents or whatever, she would just force herself to go in and either read 5 pages in the review notes or take one mini quiz on the app. And she just got incredible results from doing that. So even if you don't do it every single time, even if you replace half of the time or a fourth of the time that you normally, look at your phone throughout the day with these little mini sessions, there is a huge payoff from constantly throughout your day making these connections to the different material you've studied and to just re-exposing your brain multiple times a day to the study material. So you can purchase the pro course separately from the study tools, and of course the total bundle includes everything we have for all 4 sections. You can also purchase the section bundles separately. The section bundles do not include the pro course. So if you've struggled with the study process in general, just with your review course, just feeling like you have no plan, you've spent weeks studying or even one day studying and you have really don't get anything done, then the pro course will be a lifesaver for you. It will teach you exactly what to do. You will know exactly what to do when you sit down to study each day. You will get better results out of less time spent. And then if you have our study tools as well, that just takes the whole thing to another level, because in addition to your main study session each day, you will be rehashing the information when you listen to the audios. You'll be doing the same thing visually when you read the review notes and take quizzes on the app. So a few features of Superfast CPA and our study supplements that, as far as I know, other study supplements don't have. So because I constantly rant about getting good at what you're going to see on test day, that means questions. We based our review notes on questions. We went through thousands of exam questions and we took the most tested parts of each topic and then we put them in this format in our review notes so that you see the same context and wording that you're going to see in questions on test day. Our review notes, I would say they're somewhere between, like bullet point summaries, like very short summary notes, and a full-on textbook. They're somewhere between there. I think they're the perfect balance. We get tons of positive feedback on the review notes and how effective they are. And then what a lot of people do is they will keep them handy while they do their main study session in the morning. And before they dive into a full lesson in the review course, they will just pull up the corresponding section in our review notes and read through it because it gives you very quick, big picture understanding. The review notes and audios follow the same order as the AICPA blueprints. Again, we have a video in the pro course about how to integrate the AICPA blueprints into your study process, because the AICPA, the people who create the exam, they have these things that, again, a lot of candidates don't even know about and even less actually use. They list out by the higher order skill and the content area what you need to know how to do. And so we have a video in the pro course about how to use that in your study process. we also, the review notes and the audios follow the same order. So you can just go down the list. So in the review notes, we use calculator-free examples and questions. So what I mean by that is, one of the most frustrating things when I was studying, I was trying to fit in all this extra study time on my phone, which did make a difference. However, again, the study tools that I had at that point, my review course had an app, and I know that obviously I'm aware that every review course at this point comes with an app. The problem is they include these full strength questions, on your for the mobile study experience. It doesn't make any sense. You get a full income statement and a balance sheet, and you're supposed to calculate, some ratio with these huge numbers. So you either have to pull out scratch paper, so you might as well be doing a full study session at that point, or you just skip it and put your phone back and you think, okay, yeah, that's why I never use this thing. Because again, the core focus of our products is to make it efficient and actually feasible for you to have these high value mini study sessions multiple times a day. So as you read through our review notes, we put in example problems to illustrate the concept we just, explained. And the walkthrough problems will have nice round numbers so that as you read it, it just is easy to follow. It's easy to follow the calculations and how that works. And then we also provide journal entries to see, okay, from concept to example problem or walkthrough problem to how this looks in a journal entry, if applicable. And then the questions on our app are the same way. So it's very simple and easy to just plow through questions on our app because you're not going to get hung up on difficult calculations. So you get to practice how the calculations work with simple round numbers, easily divisible or whatever it is. And you just move through questions. And so you cover a lot more material much faster. And it makes it much easier to apply it to full strength questions later, when you're sitting in front of your review course and you have a calculator and scratch paper. Again, we get a lot of positive feedback on our mini quizzes. It's such an effective tool to just do 5 questions at a time, a dozen or more times a day. It just adds up. As you do that every day, these mini sessions have a huge effect on your retention and understanding. The other thing is all the tools work right inside the app. With other study supplement providers, you get access to a bunch of raw files and you have to figure out how to get them on your phone, how to actually use them. With us, you do get access to those source files if you want to use them that way. But everything works very nicely, very simply, right inside of our companion app. We also have a 60-day guarantee on our products. Nobody else does anything like this. You get to fully take our strategies and study tools, integrate them into your actual daily study process, use them for a few weeks to see the difference they will make. And at that point, after a few weeks, if you feel like they really have not made a significant difference in your overall just understanding, then we will refund your investment. The other thing that we do, we try to make this as value-packed as possible. I mean, we want to make this a no-brainer so that you get the help you need to make your study process easier, more effective, so that you pass faster. So we do not limit your time access. Even if you don't end up taking the exams for the next 3 years, you get unlimited access to your purchase and all future versions are included free. With other study supplements, you either pay this never-ending subscription, you pay that subscription for a year, you still haven't passed, 2 sections and you're sick of paying it. Well, if you stop paying that, you get cut off from your access. So with us, you pay one time, you have unlimited access for as long as you need it, and you will keep getting the updated versions of our products. We usually update 2 to 3 times a year, and you will not pay anything extra ever. So we have a lot of reviews. You can see them all over our site. I think the best example, if you want more information in that sense, is to go and listen to a few of the podcast interviews that we've published. These are completely unscripted, off-the-cuff interviews. We just set up a call, make the call, we chat for 20 to 30 minutes about their study process. And so go and listen to a few of those episodes because that will give you a very good idea of how, people are out using our products to pass their exams. And these are filled with all kinds of insights and breakthroughs from the individual candidates that we interview. So the podcast is very, very helpful completely on its own. And the first thing I tell our new customers is, you want to watch the pro videos as soon as possible, but also, like, seriously, almost just as important is to listen to some of the podcast interviews to supplement that as you are figuring out your own study process. A few specific episodes you should check out. Episode 31 is Thomas. He purchased our course and materials, but he already had an exam date and he'd been studying the traditional way. And so he stuck with that, and he kept doing that for over a year. And again, you can listen to all this in his own words, episode 31. After a year and not passing any sections, he had FAR coming up again. He switched, jumped into our videos, switched to our methods as kind of a Hail Mary attempt the last 2 weeks, and he ends up passing it. So then he commits to our process, passes the other 3 very quickly afterwards, and is all done. So once he switched to our methods, he went 4 for 4 after a year of struggling with the normal way. Julia, episode 26, quite possibly my favorite episode, because she describes in excruciating detail, again, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but you can listen to the whole interview. She made the study process this huge, very serious task, and she just happened to be missing a few key things. She was spending way too long in between sections. She was, if it's even possible, she was putting in more work than she needed to and was just really confusing herself. And so she wasn't passing. This went on for years. Her husband even started to suggest that maybe she give up on the CPA. She comes across our free training, invests in our products and our strategies. She has this renewed confidence that she's going to be able to do it. She goes out and immediately schedules all 4, which by now she's taken all 4 multiple times and failed them. So her husband thinks that is an insane plan, and she goes 4 for 4. So listen to that episode. It's just very insightful, episode 26. And then the next episode is episode 12, which would be Jade. Jade is a self-described planner, so she had researched things online before she even started the study process. She found Superfast CPA, she got our bundle, and so she, from the beginning, used our strategies. She was studying all day, every day, but she was following the study framework. She passed all 4 within 2 months. So again, the pro course is to learn the extremely effective, extremely efficient Superfast CPA study process that you apply to your current review course. Doesn't matter what review course you're using. It also doesn't matter what your learning style is. Everything's adaptable, but the key thing is that you're implementing these 6 key ingredients into your study process. And you can do those 6 things differently, but we provide a step-by-step process, and you can tweak those as needed. But your process needs to have those 6 key things. And then the study tools you would use for ongoing repeat exposure all throughout the rest of your day, so that you're constantly improving your retention and understanding of the material you're studying in your main study sessions. All right, so at this point, you can choose the bundle that's best for you below, or you can click on this video if you're watching this on something like YouTube. Go to the purchase page, choose the bundle that's best for you. Hopefully, you allow us to help you pass your CPA exams. If you have any questions, you can email me directly at nate@superfastcpa.com. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the members area.